Convicted double murderer Alec Murdaugh back in court again today. We'll talk about that in a moment. Luke and Brian Shealy are joining us. Columbia defense attorneys will weigh in on what happened in court today and some other things that have been happening with Alec Murdaugh in the last few weeks. As far as Murdaugh, again, back in court today in Beaufort County. This was his first public appearance since being sentenced back in March to life in prison for murdering his wife and son. Murdaugh was in front of Judge Clifton Newman today. That's the same judge who presided over the murder trial. Murdaugh's attorneys, Jim Harpootlian, Jim Griffin, and Philip Barber were by his side today, while prosecuting attorney Creighton Waters, who was the lead prosecutor in the murder case, was there for the state. Murdaugh is facing 101 total charges related to over $8 million the state says he took from clients. Murdaugh's attorneys asking the judge for as much time as possible to begin that trial, but the state asked for it to start as soon as possible. Ultimately, Judge Newman scheduled that date for Monday, November 27th. Meanwhile, Murdaugh is supposed to be back in a federal courtroom next week to plead guilty to some other financial crime charges. Meanwhile, a co-conspirator, Corey Fleming, sentenced to 20 years in prison today after he admitted to helping Murdaugh steal millions of dollars from clients. Fleming, a former attorney and close friend of Murdaugh, pled guilty last month to fraud stemming from the settlement money from the death of Murdaugh's former housekeeper, Gloria Satterfield, and other cases as well. In court today, his attorney said Fleming was the first to come forward, first to admit guilt, repay the money, and cooperate with prosecutors, but in the end, Judge Newman said he must pay for his crimes, 10 years in state prison, 10 years concurrent to the sentence he's serving now on the federal conviction. And there was one other person, Russell Lafitte, also in court today. The former CEO of Palmetto State Bank is still waiting on a decision for a trial date for his state charges. Judge Newman decided to revisit the issue to make a final decision in the coming weeks. He's facing 21 counts of financial crimes involving stealing $8 million from clients. His attorneys are asking for a fall 2025 trial, with the state arguing it should come quicker. All right. As we mentioned, we have two defense attorneys with us tonight, Luke and Brian Shealy. Guys, you were with us for the trial. Thanks for coming back.
Thanks for having us back.
Thanks, JR.
Who wants to weigh in first about what happened in court today, what we saw today?
Luke, you want to take it off so we don't talk over each other?
Well, we saw, the Murdaugh saga back in court, and everybody's trying to figure out when they're having a trial date. Mr. Murdaugh, although he's sitting comfortably in prison, does have some outstanding matters, and that was kind of what stole the show a little bit, in my opinion. Some of the wranglings where the state really wants it done quickly, and of course, Mr. Harpootlian and Mr. Griffin are saying, well, you know what, we need more time. We've got busy schedules. And at the end of the day, it did get set for just after Thanksgiving, November 27th, which I think was a compromise and perhaps earlier than the defense would want. I think they were really looking for a little bit of a delay to see if maybe we might get a ruling on their motion for a new trial prior to then, and maybe up in the apple cart a little bit.
Brian, are you surprised at what happened in court today?
No, I'm not. We've done many status conferences in front of Judge Newman, and he likes to set trial dates. The sooner the better. He always expects the state to be ready and the defense to be prepared, and so he's been given jurisdiction over these matters, and his judgeship ends in the beginning of next year. So I think he's looking to tie up this, tie a ribbon on this at the end of this matter. Here are the major financial crimes this year. As Luke said, the defense team are seeking based on their complex schedule for next year, and he wasn't having it. We did note with Dick Harpootlian's language to the court, I feel like he was speaking to a future motion, JR. He was saying, Judge Newman, after this trial, you were very vocal and precise in your ruling. You believed our client was guilty of the double murder. You expressed yourself very clearly. Don't let your feelings on this matter, hurt our right to prepare this case fully and adequately. We're asking for more time. This is also a big media environment. We think we need more time. We have problems finding a jury panel that hasn't heard about this matter. So by saying that, don't let your feelings, that was very telling, interfere with your judicial decision making, so to speak. he was really kind of trying to lay out a marker for, I believe they're going to move to recuse Judge Newman, and that's totally based on the witness tampering, jury tampering allegations, where Judge Newman is a witness to, I mean, he was the trial judge. He would have been operating intimately with court staff, including Miss Becky Hill, and so I just see that as them laying a marker for, and Judge Newman set a trial date, so he didn't do what they asked for, and now they're going to probably file a further motion moving him to be recused.
Luke, would that be an unusual move here, to ask for a different judge, a different venue perhaps as well?
It would be. I mean, it's very routine after a conviction, especially on a murder case. You get a certain amount of time to make post-trial motions, which really you're just preserving the record on things that you think the judge got wrong. The judge rules on that, sometimes with a hearing, but usually just by court order denied. And then it goes up to appeal. But here you've got this very unusual post-trial motion to stay the appeal based on after discovered evidence. It's like the holy grail of, defense lawyer stuff. Something came to light that's so substantial and material that you just have to have a new trial. And so, Judge Newman, everybody's been doing a whirlwind media tour, ourselves included. Here we are with you talking about this case. And so I don't think anybody could have thought that this allegation about the clerk of court would have been uncovered. And it seems to be that there's enough legs to it where they have affidavits. I expect there will be a hearing. And so I think everybody's shocked. So then when you have a decider of this motion, which normally would be the presiding trial judge, who's also a witness, at least per the defense's perspective, because he was interacting with Clerk of Court Hill about these matters regarding to the juror that got excused. And then you have some of his personal comments and feelings during sentencing that were pretty pointed. It does kind of make for the ability for the defense to say, hey, we don't think you can be fair and impartial. But of course, judges always believe they can be fair and impartial. And so it just helps create legal issues down the road, regardless of if Judge Newman keeps it or not.
Let's talk more about Becky Hill here now. The clerk of court, the allegations are that she tampered with the jury. The defense asking for a new trial based on allegations that she spoke to jury members, trying to influence their decision in this case, who to believe, what not to believe. Some serious allegations here in this case. If this is true, if these allegations of jury tampering by the clerk of court of all people are true, new trial on the murder charges or not?
Yes, JR. Doing as many trials as we do, the clerk of court's role is to really assemble the jury, make them comfortable, help organize them, anything they need so that they can conduct their sworn duty without any kind of complications is really what that role is. It's an elected position. A lot of people don't know that. Becky Hill would have had to have a popular vote, but we get upset if we have a jury out late past 8 o'clock and dinner's not ordered yet. And we had that happen recently in a trial, and that kind of annoyed us. But what we're talking about here, because when the jurors have the evidence and they're doing their sworn duty, which is the bedrock of our judicial system, and it's all about those 12 back there. They need to be comfortable. They're not supposed to talk about the evidence until they actually get the exhibits and the evidence. They can't talk about the cases with their family. They're not supposed to be able to talk about the case at all throughout the proceeding with each other until the judge sends them back there, reads them the law, charges them, and gives them the evidence. And so these affidavits and the defense filing, where these jurors, and there's 2 of them plus another juror through a interview with an attorney, are saying, listen, not only did she discuss the case with us, she was trying to influence us. She was telling us, the defense team are going to try some tricks. Don't believe his body language. Here's what they're going to try to do. And so, and then private interviews with jurors by the clerk of court, Ms. Hill, in one of these affidavits for an hour is unheard of by any trial lawyer in the state. And, reading the record of that transcript when Becky Hill brought the juror, and these allegations are that she's fabricating Facebook posts from ex-husband of one of the jurors that there was shared communication, and then the Facebook post can't be found. I mean, these are intense allegations, and it's telling because Judge Newman, outside the presence of the jury, but the court was not, there weren't witnesses being called, but they were getting ready to start the day, and he's hearing that Ms. Hill has been questioning a juror in her office for an hour, and he's on the record saying, "Ooh, I don't like that. If there's an issue with a juror, Ms. Hill needs to send that person directly to me, not be questioning them in her office." He did not like that. He did not like that.
Luke, this has been a very high-profile case. I mean, people all across the United States, and there was some interest worldwide in this case. So if these allegations of jury tampering are founded, this is a stunning turn of events in this high-profile case, is it not?
Hugely stunning, shocking, unheard of for all the reasons that Brian just laid out about these allegations regarding the bedrock of our judicial system, the sanctuary. It would have to be overturned, and then you have a redo, something that took enormous expense by the state of South Carolina, by SLED, personal cost to the defendant who defended himself. It's just all the other missed cases that could have been resolved in that 6-week period. So it would be very tragic if it were overturned, but necessary, because you have to have even the worst of the worst in our society, and he may be that, have to have a chance at a fair trial.
This is one aspect, the financial crimes or another. And Brian, do you think that the prosecution is trying to get as many years, get a guilty verdict here and get as many years for these financial crimes in case this trial is thrown out and they've got to do a redo all over?
I do. That was spoken to today in court. Dick Harpootlian was saying very candidly, I mean, Judge, we will plead Alec Murdaugh. He's pleading in federal court next week, is what Harpootlian said. We'll plead him to the state level charges. It's just the way that they are being presented by the state, in that Creighton Waters wants to bring them one at a time. He's not going to allow a global plea because breach of trust with fraudulent intent over 10,000 is a strike in our strike systems. And so Harpootlian kind of alluded to the fact that they're trying to have these strikes lined up so that then he can be eligible for life without parole, which is, obviously, that's a statutory thing based on most serious offenses or serious offenses, which is part of our strike system in our state. And so I do feel, and Creighton Waters said, well, listen, this guy is the worst of all of us. He's the worst of the worst. To use a South Carolina bar license to effectuate in this courthouse and other courthouses around the state crimes against people and our citizens. And basically Creighton said he was a lawyer, Judge. He's one of us, and he did the worst thing that a lawyer can do. So, Creighton said, I don't care about the federal court system. We're going to get our pound of flesh right here. But yes, JR, I do feel that they are structuring the cases where Dick Harpootlian and company are going to be maybe going to trial because they don't want to be stuck with life without parole, because they do feel they have a shot at bringing back the murder convictions.
If there is a redo on the murder charges, is it going to be in Colleton County, Luke?
I don't see how it can, because if it's a redo based on what has been alleged against Clerk Hill, then she's the head clerk who hires deputy clerks. I mean, it's almost like a challenge to the institutional system of that courthouse. I think the safest thing, if that allegation was founded, is to get into a different county. I mean, it's hard to find any place that hasn't heard of Alec Murdaugh, but if you want to avoid any appearance of any other wrongdoing, you get out of that county. Ms. Hill has 2 very good lawyers already on her team, which is good for her. But I think there's enough legs here where if there's a redo, you have to go somewhere else that you're very confident in the setup, the clerk of court,
right,
how it's run, and then you try to give it another go.
And we've been showing video, for viewers who don't know, we've been showing video of Becky Hill signing a book. She actually wrote a book. It came out last month, in the month of August, the experiences of the Murdaugh trial. No law says she can't write a book here, right, about what happened there.
Well, there's no law about writing books. There is a law for public officials that said they cannot use their position as a public official to enrich themselves. And so that's an ethical piece of law in our state. So it's not like, she can't have a side job and make an income, but the law does say that you can't use your position and your position alone to be what is gaining income for you. So that's an ethical thing, but I think what these affidavits smack of, JR, there is a 5-year state felony allegation for jury tampering. And so if this trial gets overturned, and there will be an evidentiary hearing, and I do believe it will be held by Judge Clifton Newman. I think there will be some objections to that by the defense, saying that he's a witness. I think Judge Newman will not recuse himself. I think he will say that he can do this job. But he will hold an evidentiary hearing. And I think all 12 of those jurors will be questioned. I think other court personnel will be questioned. And I think, that the law on this issue is there a communication that is about the subject, an outside communication that is about the subject matter of the trial? And if so, was that communication such that it would be, prejudicial to the defense?
If there is another murder trial, a double murder trial for Alec Murdaugh, if he does in fact win that argument and get another trial, does he testify this go around?
That's the fascinating thing about it, because the major point that if you had a new trial, well, do the financial crimes come in? He's in the process of being tried. He's pleading guilty to some. Most people would say that the only reason, the fact that they came in through Jim Griffin opening the door, which was Judge Newman's ruling, how can you have a fair trial in the face of all that? So he had to testify. You had 1 day of testimony acknowledging and mea culpaing the financial crimes, and then a second day of really talking about the murder. So I think, he still gets to make those calls. And if he had a trial where the financial crimes were kept out, as Judge Newman had originally ruled, sure, he'd want to testify and talk all over about the incident again. Of course, he has a transcript. He couldn't really change his story. But does he fare better in front of a jury without hearing about financial crimes? Absolutely.
What about the trouble he has gotten himself in prison by talking with a media outlet through his attorney? It's like he's in prison and breaking the rules behind bars already.
Yeah, we see a lot of prisoners with contraband cell phones and conducting, honestly, crimes behind bars with their cell phones. They're very kind of dangerous items in prison. They can get into all kinds of trouble. But this is a recorded call with his lawyer that is then being released to the press, presumably for money. And I know that the Department of Corrections was very unhappy with that, and I think even Jim Griffin got in a little bit of hot water about that. It's just a unique kind of situation, really directly involving the celebrity status of Murdaugh. So it's just like the jury tampering at this level allegations. It's kind of a new world we're stepping into and following this case.
You talk about celebrity status. Something I noticed today, and what do I know? I'm just a news guy. He walks into the courthouse today and into that courtroom almost like he was happy to be there. That's the impression I got anyway.
I don't think you're wrong about that. He looked relaxed. I think he's probably been pretty bored in prison, and so here he is in the limelight again. That he doesn't have the same tension that he would have going into a trial where he was waiting to be found guilty or innocent on a double murder. So that's behind him. What he has now is essentially hope. Hope that a new trial will occur, and here he is in these proceedings.
All right. Any idea when we'll know as far as whether or not he's going to get a new trial? Do we have a time frame there? Is this something we're going to know before the November 27th financial crimes?
I think I heard Harpootlian say that he expected the state to make a filing this week, maybe tomorrow, and then the court to weigh in terms of scheduling. So if I were the court, I would not want to have this heard before the financial crimes trial. But I don't know necessarily how you can really delay that. But it'll be a scheduling matter. But if I were the judicial system, I'd be wanting to do the financial crimes trial first. Don't you think, Luke?
I don't know why the judicial system would have any dog in that fight. I think it's a matter of some urgency, because the more it festers, the more these jurors may be influenced one way or the other. I mean, they all have lawyers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's always kind of bad when lawyers have lawyers. Well, I don't think it's any better when jurors have lawyers. So if I were some decision maker, I'd want to get this issue settled in an appropriate way quickly before there's any more influence in any shape or form.
Well, that's you, but now it is staying the appeal. But presumably it also would be scheduled in front of Judge Newman. He would be the one setting that time frame, and so I could easily see Judge Newman referencing today's status conference. Well, Dick Harpootlian and Jim Griffin, you're telling me all these reasons why you don't have time to do the trial. Remember, you wanted it pushed out to January, so what's your rush? I could see Judge Newman doing that.
All right. Brian, Luke, Sheely, guys, as always, thank you for your expertise.
Thank you, Joe.
And of course, for more on what's going on with Alec Murdaugh as he faces yet another trial on these financial crimes and the possibility of a new trial on the double murder charges, as always, simply go to our website, WLTX.com. Thanks for watching.